My choices are different. My choices are Labour choices. The choices in this spending review that are only possible because of my commitment to economic stability and to the decisions that this government has made. The Conservatives' fiscal rules guaranteed neither stability nor investment, and that is why I changed them.
Mr. Speaker, this spending review is not worth the paper that it is written on, because the Chancellor has completely lost control. This is the spend now, tax later review.
The government is playing you for a fool. Not bending facts, not shading the truth, flat out lying. And they assume you won't see it. Rachel Reeves parades at the dispatch box, talking of growth while the economy crumbles beneath her feet. Karma pledges transparency while his cabinet cooks up trade deals that are pure fiction. The fiscal abyss they claim to close, it's widening fast. The taxes they swear won't rise, prepare for them anyway. And when the markets snap, as they inevitably will, who bears the fallout? Not them. You do. This is the tale of a government unravelling, desperately spinning lies to cover its own collapse. And the worst is still to come.
In her spring statement, which is only 3 months ago, less than that, the Chancellor said that you couldn't tax and borrow your way to prosperity and better public services. But that is exactly what she's doing. We had these huge tax increases last October, and the borrowing is enormous. So if you look at what the OBR said, we go back to March 2024, last Tory budget. The OBR said between then and the end of the decade, we'd borrow 320 billion. This year, in March, the OBR said it's now 520 billion. She's borrowing an extra 200 billion between now and the end of the decade, at a time when the global bond markets are down on profligate governments, charging higher and higher yields. And John, we already pay the highest yields to get our debt away in the advanced market economy world.
Rachel Reeves stood there, poker-faced, preaching fiscal responsibility while unleashing the largest borrowing spree in living memory. Andrew Neil laid bare the staggering reality. She's borrowing an extra 200 billion by the end of the decade. Pause for a second, let that sink in. This isn't just reckless, it's economic sabotage on a monumental scale. The same Chancellor who 3 months ago insisted you can't tax and borrow your way to prosperity is now doing exactly that, all while lecturing us on stability. The hypocrisy is jaw-dropping. She's gambling with our children's future, saddling them with debts they'll toil decades to repay. And the scariest part? The bond markets see through the lie. Britain now pays higher borrowing costs than during the infamous trust meltdown. How much longer before someone stops this economic carnage?
Well, the Tories left behind a spending plan for a number of departments which was as tight as could be, and frankly not possible to implement. The government's made it a little bit better now, but for those non-protected departments, you're right, it's a tight squeeze. For the Home Office, even for housing, for local government, it's going to be very difficult. For the Foreign Office as well, it's going to be tough too. And yet by 2930, health and social care will account for £232 billion a year. By far the biggest area of government spending, and yet everybody in health says it's not enough, it's not enough. It never is enough, and I'm not aware, John, you may be down in Westminster in a better position. I'm not sure that this extra money for health yet comes with any kind of price in terms of reforms. To me, it still seems we're pouring money into an unreformed health service whose productivity is 20% below what it was pre-COVID in 2019.
Here's the NH scandal they hope you never hear about. We're funneling 232 billion a year into a system that is now 20% less productive than it was before. Let that sink in. paying more, getting less. And Rachel Reeves has just pledged even more cash, without a single reform in sight. It's like pouring water into a bucket with a gaping hole. Andrew Neil summed it up perfectly. We're financing an unreformed health service that devours taxpayers' money while outcomes get worse. Where is the accountability? Where are the productivity targets? Instead, we're left with hollow promises and looming strikes. The NHS has become a sacred cow, consuming ever more resources while patients wait longer and care quality declines. This isn't compassion, it's economic lunacy disguised as virtue. When will someone demand real reform instead of just signing bigger checks?
I gave Keir Starmer and the government credit for finally sort of waking up to and addressing the issues that obviously, the country have over concerns. But I did point out at the time that the problem we had was the action wouldn't match the rhetoric, because the rhetoric wasn't actually Keir Starmer's rhetoric. It wasn't his words. They were words obviously drafted for him by advisors that he simply parroted. I mean, again, that's proven to be correct. I mean, but as you say, I don't see the benefit in him sort of disavowing himself in this way. But this is where, unfortunately, we're gonna go with this government now. I mean, I remember writing years ago, long before he became Prime Minister, how somebody close to Keir Starmer had said that Starmer himself had told them, I don't really understand politics, I'm not that good at it.
In a rare moment of honesty, Keir Starmer essentially admitted he's hopeless at the very job he fought so hard to win. He rated himself 5 out of 10 for communication skills, though most would give him far less. But the real shocker? Someone close to Starmer revealed years ago he confessed, I don't understand politics. I'm not that good at it. Think about that. The man running Britain openly admits he doesn't grasp the job he holds. This isn't humility, it's a damning indictment of his competence. We're watching a Prime Minister who isn't just failing at politics, but is daily proving inept at governing as well. His regret over the island of strangers' speech exposes a leader without conviction, reading lines from advisors rather than speaking from belief. Britain deserves better than an amateur hour performance from someone learning on the job while the country burns.
Yeah, so in the bond markets, they do seem, not just here, but they seem to be losing their appetite for government debt, don't they? And a move in the wrong direction, even a small one, it really piles on the cost of keeping that debt, of servicing that debt, and that money has to come from somewhere.
You're right, the bond vigilantes are on the prowl across the globe. They've already had a go at Donald Trump and won. They've had a go at Japan, whose finances are usually rock solid. And Britain is in the crosshairs as well. We already spend over £100 billion a year simply on interest to service the debt, twice what we spend on defence. That will now rise.
Here's the economic truth they desperately want to bury. Britain now pays more to borrow than during the so-called chaos of Liz Truss's mini-budget. Let that sink in. The very woman they blamed for an economic crash managed better rates than Rachel Reeves does today. We're now spending over £100 billion a year on debt interest, twice the entire defence budget. And it's climbing fast. The bond markets are circling, having already hammered Trump's America and rock-solid Japan. Britain is next, and for good reason. When global investors lose faith in a government's fiscal competence, the consequences are brutal. Every point increase in borrowing costs steals billions from public services and forces higher taxes on working families. Yet Reeves barrels on with her reckless spending spree, blind to the cliff she's driving us toward. Storm clouds are gathering, and this government is heading straight into the hurricane.
Keir Starmer's strategy in response to the collapse of the government's economic strategy is just to lie, not be economical with the truth, but tell outright lies. It's an utterly insane approach, and it will have massive implications in 2 or 3 years. I can't understand what they're doing and why they're doing it.
No, I can't. I mean, obviously you highlighted it, and that's the tweet I was responding to. This idea that the government has found, I think it's, what is it? Reeves announced an extra 29 billion for housing.
Right.
And the idea that's been found by found from the VAT on private school is obviously just, as I said, it's just a lie.
It's just nonsense, isn't it?
True.
Yeah.
We had, as we saw, as you again cited, we had the IFS analysis of the spending review, in which the IFS basically said they're making up the figures. And of course, the biggest lie of all is the one that Rachel Reeves has suddenly been able to start spending all this new cash, because they have eradicated the £22 billion black hole they supposedly inherited.
The government's entire economic story hinges on one colossal lie: the fabled £22 billion black hole they claim to have inherited and heroically fixed. Rachel Reeves built her image on supposedly stabilising the economy by closing this imaginary deficit. But here's the truth they can't escape. The day after she declared everything under control, official figures showed the economy had shrunk. You couldn't make it up. She celebrated victory over economic chaos while the economy crumbled beneath her. This isn't mere political embarrassment. It's proof of a chancellor completely out of touch with reality. The black hole was always a convenient fiction to justify their tax and spend agenda. But when your own success story collapses in 24 hours, even the most credulous start asking questions. How long can they keep this charade going when the proof of their failure sits in black and white from their own statistics office?
And there are many fundamental things that need to change in Britain, and no one has a fundamental reform programme to do so. Labour got elected in the most modest of manifestos and had given no real thought to the real things that ail us. I mentioned the productivity in the NHS. Our demography is in real trouble. We're ageing. And we've got 9 million people of working age who don't work and pull in a salary. These are all difficult things demanding big radical reform. And frankly, our political system, and I include Reform Party in this, our political system is not up to that at the moment. We're not producing the kind of politics which is sufficient stature to deal with the huge economic problems that face us. They face most Western economies, actually, but they particularly face us in a difficult way. And I think we'd rather bury our heads in the sand than to stand up to what needs to be done of some fundamental reforms in all of our public services. We seem to be in a situation, John, where we spend more and more on public services for less and less in terms of that service.
Andrew Neil delivered the harshest verdict yet on Britain's predicament. Our political class, left and right, is simply incapable of meeting the enormous challenges we face. This isn't partisan sniping. It's a brutal diagnosis of systemic failure across the board. 9 million working-age people aren't working, the population is ageing, and public services devour more resources while delivering worse results. These crises demand radical reform. Instead, we get leaders burying their heads in the sand. Neil's comparison is telling. He looks back at the period under Thatcher, Major, Blair and Brown as something of a golden age. That shows how far we've fallen. Today's politicians lack the intellect, courage and vision to tackle the real problems. They offer temporary fixes and empty speeches while Britain drifts towards stagnation and decay. The tragedy isn't just their failure, it's that they don't even grasp its scale. The evidence is everywhere. Rachel Reeves breaks her tax promises. Starmer admits he doesn't understand politics. Borrowing costs are higher than during the trust crisis. N8's funds vanish into an unreformed black hole. Every pillar of their economic strategy is collapsing. And here's the terrifying part. They know it. They know the numbers don't add up, and they do it anyway. When taxes rise, when the bond markets strike, when economic reckoning hits, remember this moment. Remember how they lied about everything, from housing to fiscal responsibility. The question isn't if this government will fail, but how much damage they'll cause before it does. Share this video, demand answers, and brace for the storm ahead. If we don't hold them accountable now, we'll all pay for their deception later. If you liked this video, leave a like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.